Everybody, welcome back to the channel. Let's talk about sleep, where we, guess what, talk about sleep. My book, Let's Talk About Sleep. It's out there on Amazon. The paperback version is coming out in May of 2019. So keep an eye out for that. Today, if you're in America, or I guess if you're in America, we just had daylight savings over the weekend. If you're watching this, it's March 11th, 2019 at the filming of this video. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit. Now, if you remember from previous videos, I had made the comment that we sleep about an hour less than we did 100 years ago. And now, while that's not sound like a big deal, it actually is for kind of a community global perspective. So if we're already an hour deprived and we take another hour out of that sleep, what do you think is going to happen? Well, things like reaction time, things like irritability, things like just our bodies and our brains' general sense of well-being is going to be impacted by that. Now, where does that come into play? Driving. Sorry, my nose is itchy. The #1 day for car accidents in America is today, the Monday after daylight savings time. And the reason being is because we're already a sleep-deprived society, and we take another hour out of that chunk, and people are going to feel even more tired, or the reaction time is going to be even more slowed, so on and so forth. So, depending on when you're watching this video, be careful on the road, is the point. But it kind of leads to a bigger picture, right, of the fact that 2/3 of Americans don't get enough sleep. And when the sleep deprivation is chronic, and it's not, like, if we have a couple nights, or if we have one night a week where we get 2 hours, we're going to feel it the next day, and obviously everybody knows you're not going to feel great, you're not going to be at your best, okay. But what if, on a kind of night-to-night basis or day-to-day basis, somebody needs 8 hours a night, but they're only getting 6? Well, they don't necessarily feel that as much as you'd think, and over time, the effects are cumulative. There was a study done that I talk about in my book, probably about 10 or 15 years ago, where they took a whole bunch of people and they broke them up into 4 groups. So group 1 was given 8 hours time in bed. This was done in a research lab. So group 1 was given 8 hours time in bed. Group 2 was given 6 hours time in bed. Group 3, 4 hours time in bed. And group 4, no hours time in bed. And what they were looking at are what's called PVT tasks. So that's psychomotor vigilance tasks. And essentially what that is, we've all done it. It's like you're in front of a computer, you see a dot on the screen, you press the button to when you see the dot, right? It's a measure of attention. So if somebody is sleepy or not at their best, they're either going to make errors of omission, where they missed the dot, or errors of commission, where even though they didn't see the dot, they pressed the button anyway, okay? It's just a simple measure of how focused and attentive somebody is, right? So in these 4 groups, what they did was they had them do these tests. And the study period was over 2 weeks. So group 4, the people had no time in bed. They were out of the study after about 3 nights, 3 days, 3 nights of no sleep. You can imagine you can't keep somebody awake for 2 weeks straight. And, you know, I mean, in terms of being inhumane, that's like the top of the list. So after 3 nights of no sleep, they were removed from the study. But they still did this PVT task. So what happened was they were looking for the amount of errors as the sleep deprivation continued. So this was a 2-week period for the other groups. So group 4, the ones who had no time in bed, as you can imagine, the amount of errors that they had over those 3 days went up, 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 right? So after 72 hours of no sleep, what do you think? The amount of errors that they had was tremendously high. Okay, no surprise there. Group 1, the folks who had 8 hours time in bed, they consistently had basically the same amount of right answers, or right, clicking of the button throughout that 2-week period. No surprise there. But the groups 2 and 3 were the most interesting. So again, these were folks who had 6 hours of time in bed and 4 hours of time in bed. So over that 2-week period, if you look at a chart of the mistakes they made, they slowly went up, and actually reached that of the people who had no time in bed. So people who had no sleep after 3 nights, over the course of the 2 weeks, had the same amount of mistakes across all comers. Now, well, that's somewhat surprising, right? I mean, you think about it, these people were just chronically sleep deprived. They weren't acutely sleep deprived, but they ultimately ended up making the same amount of mistakes after 2 weeks. But what's really interesting about this is that halfway through the study, so about a week into the study, they asked all these groups, especially group 2 and 3, the folks who had 6 and 4 hours of time in bed respectively, said, how you doing? How you feel like you're doing with this sleep deprivation? How you doing with this, the mistakes you think you're making? How you doing with your reaction time? And almost every single person said, I feel fine. I feel like my body is getting used to this or adjusting to this, which is a very, very common thing. People who are chronically sleep deprived, and again, we're not talking about missing a whole night of sleep one night. We're talking about missing maybe an hour of sleep night after night after night. They will oftentimes not have a good sense of how really impaired they are. So this study showed that after a week or 2 of this, they basically didn't really feel the effects of it, but their brain did, i.e. the amount of mistakes they were making on this attention task went way up. So where does that come into play? Well, something that requires constant attention and really good ability to kind of be in the moment and react to situations is driving, right? So we as a society are very sleep deprived to begin with. As I said, about 2/3 of adults don't get enough sleep. You add to it another hour of sleep deprivation, i.e. what we just had, right? And what's going to happen? Car accidents. So the teaching point here is 2 things. One is that we definitely need more sleep as a society, for sure. So you who are watching this, make sure if you need your 8 hours, get them. The average person needs between 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Okay, and that's consistently across the board. That doesn't mean 4 hours during the week and then try to make up for it on the weekend. That means consistently 8 hours of sleep. And the other thing is, be careful. When you're driving, I mean, I live in Manhattan. You know, car accidents happen all the time. There's a lot of people weaving in and out of traffic. You really need to be on the ball. Yeah, that's the thing here is when you see all these reports in the news about trains crashing and various, you know, tragedies occurring, you know, 18-wheelers and stuff flipping over. That stuff is not necessarily because the person was on some sort of, you know, psychotropic substance like alcohol or whatever else. Some cases they were sleep deprived. All right, so hopefully the point has been driven home that, you know, you need to get chronically good sleep, and when you don't, you may not feel the effects of it, but your body does, or your brain does. So that's the story. Please like this video. Please share it with people who you think may be sleep deprived. Please subscribe to the channel. If you have questions, leave them in the comment section. I will answer all of them. And once again, the book is on Amazon, so please go check that out. And I will see you guys in the next one. Until then, sleep well.